So Katniss is describing how all of District 12 has been obliterated by the Capitol's bombs, except for the Victor's Village. She's like, I don't know why. Like, maybe so that the Capitol people have a place to stay. And I'm like, no, it's so that the rest of the district hates you guys. It's to point the finger that it's your fault that this happened. Literally on page 2, well, technically page 4, but it's like page 2. She says, the memory swirls. I try to sort out what is true and what is false. And this is a recurring theme, not only in this book, like especially in this book, but throughout the entire series. Like, poor Katniss and Peeta don't know what's true, what's false, who's lying, who's telling the truth, where they're being deceived, where they're being used. And it's just what's real and what's not real. So here I'm going to start by saying that I think District 13 is almost as bad as the Capitol, but they're bad in a different sense, because Katniss says those over 14 have been given entry-level ranks in the military, and addressed respectfully as soldiers. They're children, but they're trying to, manipulate and bottle feed them that, like, look, we're going to make you soldiers, give you respect, and, you should be thankful that we're giving you this place to live and food and, like, all these things. But really, they're using these people with nothing, manipulating them into being foot soldiers in their greater agenda. When Katniss is describing what they want her to do, that they have a whole team of people to make me, overdress me, write my speeches, orchestrate my appearances, etc., they just want her to be a figurehead, very equivalent to what royal families look like nowadays. And yes, I know that the British royal family and other ones do a lot, but they're not putting a whole lot of, like, input or impact on, like, the government as much as they used to in history. Like, their point is, they do a lot what they want Katniss to do. They go around and they are the image to represent their country, that when you think of their country or the cause, you think of them. They're the rallying point. Wait, I would actually love, though, if Coin is really wearing a wig, because when you, like, the wigs we associate with the Capitol, that would make her one step closer to the Capitol. However, she tries to make it look real with the, the straight gray hair, trying to be like one of the people, relate to them, but really, she's just like the Capitol. When Katniss is in her home in District 12, she picks up, like, something for her mom, the photo of her parents on the wedding day, the blue hair ribbon for Prim, and then the family medicine book, for herself. She won't say it's for herself, she'll say it's, for practical reasons, but she gets it, I think, because it will remind her of her dad and of Peeta. I'm still in chapter 1, but I love that Suzanne Collins is setting up that basically Katniss has achieved her goal all the way back from book 1. She finally got her family and Gale's family safe, but they still want her to keep fighting. She's like, why would I do that when every step I take ends in retribution for myself or my loved ones? And then she says a little bit later, Peeta. That's the only thing that is the question mark over her head, the thing that is, she can't be happy about until she knows whether he's still alive and they can save him or he's dead. However, she is afraid that whatever she does, whatever steps she takes, could hurt him more. So I think Katniss's relationship with the cat is for, like, a myriad of reasons. Like, one, it's not doing anything practical for their lives. It's not like the goat that gives them milk. It's just, the cat's eating from their limited food source. But also, prior to entering the games the first time, Prim and Gale were the center of Katniss's life. Like, no one else, just those two. And the cat, her relationship with it was bittersweet because the cat took away some of Prim's attention and love from Katniss. Yet simultaneously, the cat was able to return Prim's affection in a way that Katniss just couldn't. And I think she was a little jealous of that. In a previous video, I believe while reading Catching Fire, when she first met Bonnie and Twill, I compared their journey to 13 being kind of similar as, like, people coming from Europe to America with this belief that would be a better life, but realizing it's not much different from what they left behind. It's different, but not that much. But now I'm starting to wonder if it's also supposed to be like going out west, like being convinced and told by the government, like, hey, you're going to get all this gold and money and life's going to be so much better. But really, a lot of people died in the Oregon Trail, and once they got out there, it was shit. Like, it was hard. The more obvious comparison, obviously, with District 13 and the Capitol each having nuclear weapons trained at each other is, America and the Soviet Union during the Cold War. Yeah, the more I'm reading, definitely 13 was stylized after the Soviet Union, having, like, a very socialist-like style of living, saying that, they thought that they would die off on their own, but they almost did a few times, but I always managed to pull through due to strict sharing of resources, strenuous discipline, and constant vigilance against further attacks from the Capitol. I know no one's happy about the fact that, Gale touches her cheek, saying, like, he's concerned, and she, like, leans into it, but this is big, because previously, like, prior to going to the Hunger Games, Katniss probably would have inched away. Like, she didn't like physical touch. I think Peeta helped change that for her, that now she, like, leans into physical touch. Peeta has a serious way of words, like him describing, like, that last night to Caesar, saying, you have to imagine how I felt in the arena. It was like being an insect trapped under a bowl filled with steaming air, the giant clock ticking away your life. Like, The rebels didn't want him because he would have been amazing. As bad as it makes you feel, you're going to have to do some killing, because in the arena, you only get one wish, and it's very costly. It costs your life, says Caesar. Oh no, it costs a lot more than your life. To murder innocent people, says PETA, it costs everything you are. Fucking PETA, even now, he is still defending Katniss, because Caesar's trying to be like, well, you saw Katniss was the one that blew up the arena, and he goes, she didn't know. You could see she was trying to figure out what to do with the wire, like, PETA. This scene at the end of chapter 2 where Katniss knocked over the pencils and is trying to, like, you know, fumble with them and shove them back in and ends up bringing a bunch of them, and Gale being like, let me take over, and he, like, you know, nicely puts them away, I think is a great analogy of showing that, yes, Katniss wants to be part of the rebellion, but she, like, fumbles and just, like, does a lot because she has a lot of emotions, because she has a lot to lose in this, whereas Gale is a little bit more precise. He's a little bit more level-headed when it comes and executes it a little bit better if you are looking at it in the terms of, you know, the rebellion, not in terms of, like, humanity. Katniss has not realized that she has exchanged one president for a different president, and she is still dancing to their fiddle, hoping to meet their expectations in order to keep someone she loves safe. She had to do it with Snow by pretending that, you know, convincing him that she truly was in love with PETA to keep everyone safe, and now she's doing it with Coin to make sure PETA gets a pardon at the end. While many do not like Gale, especially with his actions at the end of this book, he does genuinely like Katniss, and he knows her, and he's willing to step in to help her, even if it means that he faces retribution, just to give her a few moments of privacy, to go interact with her prep team. I'm only 48 pages in, and I've noticed it at least 3 times. So there is a good quality to Gale. It's just that his later actions counteract that. Katniss is noting that Coin and Snow are pretty much the same person, that there's ulterior motives and, like, a message hidden underneath their actions. And she says it like, you know, punishing my prep team's a warning, not just to me, but to you too, about who's really in control and what happens if she's not obeyed. If you had any delusions about power, I'd let them go now. Basically showing that Coin and Snow are the two sides of the same coin. In chapter 2, when Peter was being interviewed with Caesar, he talks about how when you're in the arena, you forget about the outside world. And I think that's a motif throughout the series, because you see it with, like, you know, when Peeta and Katniss were in the cave in the first book, they forgot about the outside world playing, like, house. And then they kind of did it again in the second book when they were sitting on top of the tribute tower before the second games began. They were kind of playing house and forgetting about the outside world and all that it comes with. And right now, and every other time that her and Gale go out in the woods, it's like they forget about the outside world and all that comes with it is just them in the woods hunting. And here we're seeing this divergence in thoughts between Gale and Katniss yet again, where Gale asks her, why do you care so much about your prep team? She says, why shouldn't I? And he says, let's see, because I spent the last year putting you up for slaughter. Now, Katniss is a little bit more sympathetic because she's been with them, amongst them, and she understands that they don't know what's going on in the outside world and that they don't really have power to change what's going on completely. They do, but they're ignorant. Whereas Gale doesn't know this. He doesn't interact with them. So he is accusing and assuming and lumping all the capital as being in the wrong and at fault. That being said, I think that both of them are equally right and wrong. Like, Gale's pointing out that they're adults. Them being ignorant is not a get out of jail free card. They drank the Kool-Aid. They chose to be ignorant because they had the chance to learn what was actually happening outside the Capitol. And they actually have a little bit more sway, kind of like with capitalism, where if you stop buying a product, you could potentially change the way things are. They could have stopped, investing in the games. The way I love her adding that District 13 was infected with pox, basically showing that, yeah, technically our society has eradicated smallpox, but because of vaccine, if we stop taking the vaccine, the pox can come back. I love this, like, little dig that Suzanne Collins does where, like, they have to erase all of Katniss's scars and burns to then reapply scars and burns, but, like, in a pretty way, not like the real way, because that's not pretty, which is exactly what we do in our society today. Like, we do the exact same thing. Also, everything that seems weird or, like, over the top within this series, I strongly believe you can find it in history, because Suzanne Collins has taken the Margaret Atwood approach, which Margaret Atwood has said in interviews, like, yeah, The Handmaid's Tale sounds insane, but every single part of that I picked from history. It has actually happened. Maybe not collectively, but parts of it, yes. I obviously disagree with what Gale does at the end of the bomb, but him describing how he would ensnare a hummingbird made me realize, like, of course he would do it that way. Of course he would set them up with this false sense of security with the medics coming in. You would think normally in a war situation, medics are safe, but that's when he attacked them. When Haymitch was going around having them say, like, one real thing that they liked about Katniss that wasn't her outfit, what Peeta has said about her, they, give a few examples, but they all fixate on the berries, and that's interesting to me because that was such an instinctive act for her. Like, she wasn't really thinking, but they all put their own interpretations to it. They, you know, some think it was out of love for PETA, a refusal to give in under impossible odds, defiance of the capitals and humanity. And it's kind of like similar to like when you put a book out in the world, like you have this intention, but others interpret it differently. Crap. This is just this simple interaction between Haymitch being like, we're gonna have to work together, so go ahead, say it. And she just says, I can't believe you didn't rescue PETA. I'm tearing up. You see it? I'm tearing up. Just these two simple lines. And to go off the previous video, it's just proof of how well Suzanne Collins has written these two characters, that like just these two lines shows a whole depth of emotions behind the words. Once again, I want to say that Katniss is a reluctant symbol, and I love that she's like the anti-chosen one, because if anyone else wrote it, Gale would have been the main character. And we're seeing like not only is he steadfastly standing behind the cause and willing to do whatever for it, but like Flavia is saying like, oh, not everyone's born with a camera ready face. Like, look at him, he is. Like, he probably would have been the better choice as their symbol, as one leading the rebellion. And if this was a different story, if this was a story that was talking about a rebellion, then yes, but Suzanne Collins is talking about the repercussions of war and how it's not good. District 2 is so fascinating because they are the lapdogs of the capitals. They are the peacekeepers. They are literally the trained peacekeepers. So I think the way that the capital has had them, even though they still have to send in 2 kids every year into the Hunger Games, is because they're giving them better food, better living, and giving them a little bit of power. We get this great line where, like, you know, Plutarch is saying that we're gonna have an elected representatives eventually, and then he says, don't look so suspicious. It's worked before. In books, Haymitch mutters. In history books, says Plutarch, and if our ancestors can do it, then we can do. Frankly, our ancestors don't seem much to brag about. I mean, look at the state they left us in with the wars and broken planet. Clearly, they didn't care about what they would happen to the people who came after them, but this is Republic idea sounds like an improvement over our current government. What makes it worse, Gale with the bomb at the end, is that we're already seeing hints of it, like on page 87, with him saying, like, you think this is a good idea, assembling your wounded like this, and the person's like, well, what do you expect us to do, leave them out? And he's like, that's not what I meant. And he's thinking, like, you're making them an easy target, but then he turns around and does that to their opponent. To continue off the previous video, because obviously I reached a point where the Capitol bombs their makeshift hospital, Gale is an eye for an eye. It's a never-ending cycle of you shoot me, I shoot you. Katniss saying the line, if we burn, you burn with us. Mwah, amazing, powerful, got shivers. However, it's kind of a bad thing because it's showing that Katniss is easily swayed, that whoever is the last one talking in her ear is kind of like the one that she's going to lean towards. Because previously, she heard PETA saying in the interview, what we're going to do, just kill off the rest of humanity, because that's what's going to happen if we continue with this fight. And so every decision that came up, that was the stance that she had, that we shouldn't do this, we're just going to kill off the rest of humanity. However, Gale has been slowly whispering in her ears, and like others like Gale, and now she's leaning towards her cause because she's not hearing PETA's side right now. But I also acknowledge that she is in the heat of the moment. She's right there, just watched a hospital be bombed by the Capitol. So she's angry, she's reacting, she wants to fight back. She's not thinking distantly in terms of humanity. I love how both PETA and Katniss are trying to work to protect the other person from where they're stuck, and yet every action that they take or have to take to be able to stay in line with whatever president they're under the control of, they're harming their own case if the other side wins. It hit me why it makes me so upset every time like PETA comes on with like another interview, and it's because these 2 kids are being used yet again for the 3rd time, 3rd book. They are being used by adults for whatever the adult schemes and games are. They don't care about the repercussions to these kids, the long-term effects to them. They're using them against one another to help their own personal agendas. Right now, as Gale is starting to lean away from Katniss, leaning more into the cause, Katniss is getting angry because she's not the one walking away from her past. She's trying to cling onto her past because she doesn't have a future, because PETA is not there, and she is lost in limbo. And it's interesting. Once again, it's interesting that Katniss is a symbol of this rebellion, like she's leading the cause, yet she's not fighting. She doesn't even know anything, and part of it is that she willfully doesn't want to know or be involved, but also it's because the adults aren't letting her. And to piggyback off that previous clip, it's just like when Haymitch is talking to Senna in the first games before they were sent into the games, where he goes, all right, go off to bed, the adults are going to be talking. Like, they're planning what they're going to do with these kids, but not letting the kids involved in the plans. When Gale and Katniss are in Katniss's home in District 12, and Gale starts tearing up and she kisses him, he says, I knew you would do that. And she goes, how? And he says, because I'm in pain. That's the only way I get your attention. Don't worry, Katniss. I'll pass. I think he's realizing that their paths have forked a long time ago, and it's not going to come back together, and they're not meant to be anymore, even if he still loves her. literally anything about PETA that they say during this like final book just makes me tear up because I hate it. He deserves so much better. But like when she says that PETA seemed to have been waging a sort of battle in his mind, fighting to get the message out. Why? The ease with which he manipulates words is his greatest talent. And the Capitol was taking that away from him. And I hate it. The thing about Katniss is that she's inherently selfish, which is totally normal. That's a human thing. We all are inherently selfish. We will think and act for ourselves first. But the thing that Katniss despises is when other people are punished in her stead. Case in point with PETA right now. She hates it because she is selfish and she thinks this is my selfish action or words and I should be punished. Why are you bringing these others in? God damn it, Finnick. I am crying at him talking to Katniss saying, I don't, Katniss. Obviously, I don't. I drag myself out of nightmares each morning and find there's no relief in waking. Better not to give into it. It takes 10 times as long to put yourself back together as it does to fall apart. It was after making that clip that it hit me why that hurt so much when Finnick says that he drags himself out of nightmares each morning but finds no relief. It hurts because remember in Catching Fire when Katniss is sleeping with PETA and she says, why don't you have nightmares? And he says, oh, I do. It's just that they're all about losing you and when I wake up and see you're there, it's fine. All right. I have not been a major Gale hater lately, but like I was a little angry at him being jealous that she turned to Finnick for comfort. And it's like, sir, I understand that, like, you guys have a long history. So, yeah, I would be a little upset that she would turn to someone that she just met instead of you for comfort because they do have a long history. However, he is aware that they are on different roads now, that they've forked and they're not going to reconvene, and you have been more actively distant from her. So, sir, the truly evil / brilliant thing about Snow as the villain is that he proves that he doesn't have to physically hurt her to really get at her. That he can do little things like with the roses, and that's gonna rock her probably even more than if she was in physical pain. God damn it. Tonight is a night of crying. It's just one chapter. And like, it's Katniss realizing that no matter what she does or says, it's always gonna go back and hurt PETA. That the long-term goal may not be worth the immediate repercussions. And the only person that she wants comfort from right now is Hamish because he's the only one that understands. While I'm happy that they're going to get PETA out, I hate that they're only doing it because they want to keep her as the Mockingjay. They're not doing it because they think PETA's valuable and he deserves to be free. No, they're only doing it because they don't want to lose Katniss as their symbol. I have such mixed feelings about Gale being the first one to volunteer to get PETA out. Part of me really hopes that he's doing it for Katniss. He's doing it because he knows that she will not be happy until he is safe, and he wants her to be happy. But part of me knows that he probably is really doing it for the reason that Hamish just listed, that they know she will not be the Mockingjay until she knows that PETA is safe. So I've been writing the titles of this series a lot lately, and I came to a realization. It's a countdown. The Hunger Games, Catching Fire, Mockingjay. 3, 2, 1. When Katniss goes to wake up Finnick, she says, although it's cowardly, cruel even to rouse him from his shadowy, muted drug land to stark reality, I go ahead and do it because I can't stand to face this by myself. And I don't think she ever could have. If PETA didn't also survive the Hunger Games and was there to help her through the aftermath, I think she probably would have turned into like another Hamish. She would have been drunk. She would have drunk her way through the memories and the pain. I'm sorry, but like Snow is a truly fascinating villain, antagonist, because like he not only poisoned his enemies, but he poisoned his allies. He did whatever it took to keep and maintain power. And we learn a little bit more of like why and how and the motivations in his like the prequel series, but like it's truly amazing the lengths he would go. Amazing in a terrible sense. And going off the previous clips, the thing is that whether you're a friend or a foe, he saw everyone with the potential of being a threat to him. He was super paranoid. Like, when you get to that height of power and you clung onto it for so long, you're going to be paranoid. And that's why, like, yeah, he realized that Katniss was being used by some other people for their cause, but he saw her as a threat still. And I love that Katniss calls Snow a snake because that's what he is. He slithers in, he might bite you, and you may not even realize until you drop dead, or he will constrict you tightly in his coils. While I do not think Suzanne Collins is trying to show that one person can spark a change, it's actually a collectiveness. I do feel like it's one person that's carrying the entire system forward, that if you get rid of Snow, I don't know who would replace them and continue it on. And I think it's supposed to be almost representing particular countries where it seems like one leader is the only reason why this, system is going. But if you get rid of it, the rest of the country is ready to move on. And the only reason why they do get backing these particular systems is because there are a set of people that profit off of it, and they would easily jump ship to wherever they will continue to profit. But the thing about Gale is that he is someone that will match opponents' blows. If you punch low, he'll punch low too. Like, if you're gonna fight dirty, he'll fight dirty too. Which, it's an eye for an eye and the whole world goes blind. While I hate it, we can't be mad at Gale for realizing that he does like Katniss and he does mind when Darius joked about trading a rabbit for a kiss. Because, you know what, if it was any other character in any other book where, this person does end up being the love interest, we would have been swooning at it. Honestly, at this point, Katniss is kind of dragging Gale along because she is terrified of being alone with no one to love her. And once again, we see Gale going farther deeper into war mentality, where he would rather blow up the mountain and create a death trap than preserve lives if it means furthering the cause. By the way, all this I think is supposed to make you think of also the US dropping the atomic bomb. It helped end the remainder of the war, but it also killed an entire innocent population, people that were not actively involved in the war, and made the area unlivable for a while. So was the ends worth the means? Back in the old days when we were nothing more than a couple kids hunting outside of 12, Gale said things like this, and worse. But then they were just words. Here, put into practice, they became deeds that can never be reversed. And it's showing that Gale has always fought like this. He would have been ranting and raving till his final breath. But it's because he's been finally given an opportunity to put these words into actions is what makes it a little bit more dangerous. The thing that Gale's not taking into consideration is that there are people and families hiding in there because they think it's the safest option. They may not like the Capitol and they may not like the rebels. To them, both might be big bad monsters, but they would rather be with the devil they know than the one they don't. And they're just trying to pick where they think that they might be safest, and they think that they might be safe with the one that's always kept them safe, even if they don't agree with the one. I know he's telling the truth, that Gale would sacrifice his life in this way for the cause. No one doubts it. And this is why I think that he would have been the better symbol for the rebellion, that if he ended up the Hunger Games instead of Katniss, he would have done a better job in terms of aiding the rebellion, not in terms of humanity. Beatty was right about being unable to control the avalanches once they've been set in motion. The mountainsides are naturally unstable, but weakened by the explosions, they seem almost fluid, which is a perfect representation of everything that's going on. That once they spark this rebellion, it's out of their control, and it just the whole foundation of the entire society is weakened, and it's just a mess. Gale hurries by with a group of rebels eagerly headed for the battle. I don't petition to join the fighters. Not that they would let me. I have no stomach for it anyway. No heat in my blood. I wish Peeta was here. The old Peeta, because he would be able to articulate why this is so wrong. And this is basically, I think, the final divide. The final decision that she would choose Peeta over Gale. And I think with Gale coming up with this plan and doing this, Katniss realized that even if Peeta never got better and he continued to hate her for the rest of her life, she wouldn't pick Gale anymore. I like Haymitch, but I don't like how right now he knows Katniss so well that he knows how to manipulate her into doing what they need for the cause, with him saying, you could save a lot of lives, Katniss, and that's how he gets her to do what they want. Give me one reason I shouldn't shoot you. I can't. That's the problem, isn't it? We blew up your mine, you burned my district to the ground. We've got every reason to kill each other, so do it. Make the Capitol happy. I'm done killing their slaves for them. I'm not their slave. I am. That's why I killed Cato, and he killed Fresh, and he killed Clove, and she tried to kill me. It just goes around and around, and who wins? Not us. Not the districts. Always the Capitol. But I'm tired of being a piece in their game. Oh my god, Katniss, her saying, but that kind of thinking, you could turn it into an argument for killing anyone at any time. You could justify sending kids into the Hunger Games to prevent the district from getting out of line, which is the same paranoia that Snow has developed. That's why he poisoned friend and foe, anyone that he deemed the potential of being a threat to him. When Plutarch says that they've cut off the Capitol and that they barely can be self-sufficient, that's probably why Snow then starts building up all these traps within the Capitol, is reacting because he's terrified, because he's lived through that experience before, and we find that out in the prequel series. Panem et circenses translates into bread and circuses. The writer was saying that in return for full bellies and entertainment, his people have given up their political responsibilities and therefore their power. And this is the thesis statement for this entire series and what she is trying to say about our society. Peeta can just breathe in this book and I will start crying. The fact that he designed Finnick and Annie's cake. It takes a long time before I get to the bottom of why I'm so upset. When I do, it's almost too mortifying to admit. All those months of taking it for granted that Peeta thought I was wonderful are over. Finally, he can see me for who I really am. Violent, distrustful, manipulative, deadly, and I hate him for it. And it's her realizing that he saw her better than who she was. He saw who she could be, and she's afraid that without him encouraging her that she won't ever be. And once again, we're getting the food motif. It's been a while, but she's noting how they got a shipment of, fresh meat, like beef from District 10, and how the meal's so much better and it's revitalizing everyone, making them happier. It's better than any medicine. He did save your life, Peeta, more than once. For her, he gives me a brief nod. For the rebellion, not for me. I don't owe him anything. And the thing is, he's not wrong. That is why. Well, I think Finnick is nice enough that he would have saved Peeta's life either way, but yeah. Once again, Peeta could literally breathe and I'll cry, but right now it's because he is being so hostile, and he's never been hostile. Like, I think I could count 2 times where he's, been a little aggressive, but not really, and usually for a reason. While Katniss has not agreed with a lot of Gale's choices and actions lately, the reason why she has not cut him off from her life yet is because, one, she doesn't have Peeta to turn to. She needs someone in her life to turn to, and she doesn't feel like her mother or her sister are really viable. And he's also that last tether to her old life. Like, she doesn't want to cut off from her past just yet. And he also took up such a big part of her life. Like, it's hard to cut someone from your life that's been such a huge part of it. So does Pertine's training of the invasion and the testing remind you of anything? Because it reminds me of, the Game Maker's arena, and then the Game Maker's testing them to be rated before the game started. Once again, we're seeing that Coin thinks very similarly to Snow. They are basically the same person, because she is willing to put Peeta out there because she knows that the chances of him killing Katniss is very high, and she wants Katniss gone because she's a risk for her. She's a threat. Because they don't know if she would back her, and whoever she backs would become the next leader, because Katniss has that much influence right now. But Boggs is like, that's not gonna happen, and Katniss is like, God damn it, how am I gonna steal his hollow now and dessert when he's sticking his neck out for me? Exactly how she felt when Finnick saved Peeta's life. She goes, God damn it, I can't kill him in his sleep now. This spot just hit me and it hurts, because when Gale goes, do you want me to shoot him? And she just says no because she knows that it'd be sent, not because she thinks that there's still a slimmer chance of hope that Peeta could come back. She thinks he really is a mutt now. She gave up on him pretty much. And it hurts because, if the roles were reversed, Peeta would never have given up on Katniss. Why am I thinking like Hamish? Because literally after I made that last clip, I then read Hamish calling Katniss, being like, what the hell are you doing? Now think about it. If the roles were reversed, do you think he'd be treating you like this in this scenario? The fact that Katniss walks out and sees Peeta playing with her robe, the exact same one that Finnick had given her, means that Finnick hasn't given up on Peeta. And Finnick deserved the world. He is better than all of us. And yes, I am. By the way, have you noticed that everything leading up to the games feels like it's happening fast? Like, they're very quick, short scenes, but the moment that we enter the game, things begin to slow down. And it's the same in the first book, the second book, and even now, because I am considering them in the capital as being the 76 Hunger Games. Snow basically sums up nicely what Katniss is, because she's not the chosen one. This is not a chosen one story. She is a poor, unstable girl of a small talent with a bow and arrow, not a great thinker, not the mastermind of the rebellion, merely a face plucked from the rabble because I had caught the nation's attentions with my antics in the games. But necessary, so very necessary, because the rebels have no real leader among them. Goddamn Peeta making me cry again. What he's basically saying to all of them right now by begging to let him die right now on his own terms is basically what he said before the first games. That he wants to die as himself, not as whatever the capital makes him into. He wants to die clear-minded, not riddled with tracker-jacker muttness. When there's a hissing sound that sounds like her name, Katniss, and then she hears Peeta saying it, and she goes, oh no, he's been triggered to attack me, and points her arrow instinctively at him. it's a mirroring of the first book, because remember when she drops the hive and he comes running back at her, she points her arrow at him and he yells, "Run, go!" He's doing it again. And just like also at the end of the first book where they're holding up the berries, like before the berries, she points a bow and arrow at him thinking that he's pulling his knife on her. I guess they deservedly dragged out Finnick's death a little bit more in the movies because this felt way too short to me. Katniss sitting here in Tigris's basement counting off all of their crew that has died is exactly what she's done in all the other games when she's counting off which of the tributes have died and how many are left. And the whole point of the later half of this book is to point out that, yeah, while they were in an active war, it is no different from any of the games they've been in. It is so similar. There's an unnecessary amount of deaths, there's violence, and you will never be able to get past what you saw and what you did during it. Trust me, Plutarch's thrilled, Cressida adds. That's because Plutarch doesn't care who dies, I say. Not as long as his games are a success. Showing that, yeah, this is a war, but he's still playing the games. He's still the game maker, because there is nothing different between the two. When Katniss overhears Gale and Peeta having like a private conversation when they should be sleeping, at the end, Gale says, "Oh, I do know. Katniss will pick whoever she thinks she cannot survive without." And it comes down to, again, just survival. Even when it comes to love, it is a survival thing. Her entire existence has been fueled by survival. Having a roof over her head, having enough food, survival. And that's how she views her love too. With the capital turning into a flood of refugees, people trying to find places to stay, and then the crowd beating up someone that looks like Peeta, and when they look at the footage, he looks as much like Peeta as he would Katniss. And Cressida says people have gone insane. No. They've just reached that level of desperation that the rest of the districts have already reached. And fear. Desperation and fear leads to some insane things that you would never think could happen. Also, food is once again becoming an important motif, because we're seeing that it's whatever you can get your hands on. It's, you know, non-perishable food that, even though the Capitals ate in decadence, because they experienced something like this before, they hoarded food just for like a fail-safe. But the food that they hoard seems insane, like lamb stew and, you know, canned peaches and snails. While I hate that Peeta will be walking alone in the back of the group ready to create a disturbance if they need it, I love that he once again is watching her back. He is there ready to do anything to draw fire away from her to protect her. But it also made me think of the tale of Orpheus and Eurydice, where Peeta has fallen into his own personal hell and he is following Katniss out of it. It's bad enough that Snow is using children as a human barricade to his home, but what's worse is that the rebels commandeer a capital hovercraft and drop silver parachutes, and they all grew up watching the Hunger Games and knew that the silver parachutes meant something good, like food, medicine, but they're all bombs. It was Gale's plan of using their games against them on poor innocent children. I think the continuous motif of Katniss being the girl on fire is to show that she's the accidental spark, and because of it, she is being burned by it. And also just the real, not real. Like, it's this beginning of chapter 25 is like very similar to her thoughts and memories while under Tracker Jacker influence. Also, Gale basically put the final nail in his coffin. She will never be able to forgive him for what happened to Prim. She will forever blame him for it. And Prim was the whole reason for everything that she went through, was to keep her safe, to make sure that she got to live a life better than Katniss did. The fact that Peeta is also in the burn unit tells us that he knew something was going on and he ran. He ran there to make sure Katniss was fine. And he got burned too, which is to show that he got too close to her accidental spark and he also got burned by her. And the slight irony that when her father died, her mother went into like a comatose state and Katniss had to be the one to piece things together to work through, to hide away her grief. Now, with Prim gone, Katniss is the one in a comatose state while her mother hides her grief by working harder. By the way, Katniss says that she's doing, once again, what she used to do in District 13, which is find these tight little hideaway places, you know, to hide in. And it's like a cat, how they like tight little spaces. It's like the world is too big and too scary and too much to take in, that her trauma response is to hide, to make her world smaller. I was trying to think of why Snow would like gardening so much, and then I realized you cultivate it. He cultivated this greenhouse that's not a natural environment. It's within his home. Just like how he cultivated this entire society, pretty much. I shouldn't be surprised. After all, it was 13 that started the rebellion that led to the Dark Days, and then abandoned the rest of the districts when the tide turned against it. But I wasn't watching Coin. I was watching you, Mockingjay. And you were watching me. I'm afraid we've both been played for fools. Basically showing that 13 has always been kind of selfish. That they would dip out and let others suffer for their actions. As long as it gives them another chance to potentially win in the future. And also using someone else as a front. Like using Katniss as a thing to lure the attention while she's snuck in the back. So at the very end of Mockingjay, the final book in the Hunger Games trilogy, Suzanne Collins basically sums up her entire thesis statement that is makes up this entire series. And it's, they can fatten me up, they can give me a full body polish, dress me up and make me beautiful again. They can design dream weapons that come to life in my hands, but they will never again brainwash me into the necessity of using them. I no longer feel any allegiance to these monsters called human beings, despise being one myself. I think that Peter was onto something about us destroying one another and letting some decent species take over, because something is significantly wrong with a creature that sacrifices its children's lives to settle its differences. You can spin it any way you like. Snow thought the Hunger Games were an efficient means of control. Coin thought the parachutes would expedite the war, but in the end, who does it benefit? No one. The truth is, it benefits no one to live in a world where these things happen. I kind of like how Suzanne Collins is subtly trying to call out like other books and like just society in general, how like they just assume everything comes down to boy troubles when like Hamish goes, "What is it, sweetheart? More boy trouble?" And like Katniss gets upset because that's not the only thing girls think about in their lives. And she's like, "That's the last thing on my mind. I have other problems." Finding out that Gale never came to visit her in the hospital, I think he knew. He knew, and he purposely probably signed up, like, willingly to round up the rest of the peacekeepers in District 2 because he was avoiding her, because he knew that she will never forgive him, because when she asks, "Was it your bomb?" he says, "Doesn't matter. You'll always be thinking about it, knowing that she will always associate Prim's death with him." Was it like this then? 75 years or so ago, did a group of people sit around and cast their votes on initiating the Hunger Games? Was there dissent? Did someone make a case for mercy that was beaten down by the calls of deaths of the district children? Nothing has changed. Nothing will ever change now. Here's the thing about Katniss. We have watched her for 3 books now be told what to do, and then at the last second do what she thinks is right. Just react. It's the same when she, in the first time during the Hunger Games, she has to show off for the game makers, and she's shooting, they're not paying attention, so she shoots at their pig. She's told to shoot Snow, but she shoots at Coin. The fact that she was ready to take her suicide pill after shooting Coin, because she's like, I'm going to have repercussions for this action, but once again, PETA can tell, and he knew, and he covers it, and she bit down on his hand because he's not letting her. The fact that they put her back in that same room that she was in before every single one of those games, and never once did she look at that room and wonder how can she commit suicide. But now she does, because she thinks that she lost that last thing to hang on to, the last thing to keep going for. While I do not agree with a lot of Hamish's decisions, I know he was in a tough spot with a lot of them. However, he has become a sort of surrogate father for Katniss, and he has truly, for the most part, looked out for her well-being and understood her better than her mother ever could. PETA being back, and the first thing he does is find primroses growing in the woods and says that we can bury them next to the house, is him showing that he is there to help her work through her grief while others are hiding from her, and that she should not forget about Prim, that's not how you can get through grief. Yeah, I'm sobbing at Buttercup coming back and Katniss being mad at it, but here's the thing, they're the last things that they have for, like, they only have each other, and they have both that shared love for Prim. So when she first comes back to 12, she notices that the meadow has changed because this became a mass gravesite, but on like one of the final pages, she says, although no one sees it, the meadow turns green again, showing that eventually life moves on and life continues. If you had asked me, I would have told you Mockingjay was my least favorite in the series. However, I had a lot more to say about it. There's a lot more meaning hidden within this book and reflections and mirroring and, all the analysis. And a lot more sobbing, obviously. But check back in because I'm going to be doing the prequel next.